Now, unfortunately, we're still playing around with chemical rockets, so we're never going to get out of our solar system. And so what can we do? Well, we have to kind of look at what's going on close home. And Mars is right now one of the prime places to look for life. So we've been sending probes up there. We have satellites up there looking for evidence of life. Now, there is one of the ingredients that we need: frozen water. When I was in high school, they claimed that what I would be looking at was CO2. Okay, but this apparently is water. Here's 2 slides that I show, one in 2002 and 2005, taken by a satellite going around Mars. And I showed this in my 2005 lecture, and I said, look at that. Doesn't that mean that there's probably running water on Mars? Well, I never heard anything from NASA on that. These are NASA photos, by the way. Now, one of the rovers they sent down there, in fact, they sent 2 at a time. They had 2 rovers running around, and they both had cameras on them. And this is a shot that one of them took when it was parked, looking down toward the ground. And those things aren't very big. I think they're maybe 1/8 of an inch or 1/4 inch in size. I'm not really sure what they are. But here's another picture of them. Again, imagine those are about 1/8 of an inch in diameter. And here's one over here. Look at that. What do you think of that? Does that look familiar? Maybe that's a sea urchin. Now, if that didn't convince you, look at this one. Here we are looking down at the beach, the Martian surface, and you see things on there that say, hey, those things look, what are those? See that? What do you think that is? And, oh, there's a lot of things on here. Let me see, what do you think they are? There's one. And what about that one? Now, do you think those might be seashells? Well, I thought they were, and I wrote to NASA. And you know what they said? Well, people see what they want to see. So anyway, I believe they're seashells. I believe there used to be an ocean there, and that's the remnants of whatever lived there a long time ago. Finally, here we are, 10 years later, 2015, NASA is finally admitting that there might be running water on Mars. Now, the other thing is, the rovers are equipped to sniff out methane, and what they are discovering is there also is methane on Mars. Not as much as we have. We have like 1,600 parts per million. In Mars, it's only about 2% of that. But nevertheless, the fact that there's methane there, that could have been produced by a living organism. That's why it's very interesting. There may be another way that it's produced, but this is a good sign that there might have been, or still are, living organisms, perhaps under the sand. So if we go further out, the further away we go from the sun, the more water there is on the moons and planets typically. And here we are looking at a moon of Saturn called Enceladus, and there's a geyser shooting out there. And it is mostly water, and has a frozen crust of water. So potentially, because they think that beneath that frozen crust, there might be an ocean. And so these particles that they spot, they're intercepting them in Saturn's ring. They think they come from the ocean by this gushing geyser that I showed you. Measurements of carbon dioxide and salts from these geysers, scientists calculated that the ocean is probably quite alkaline, which is good if you're looking for life, similar to household ammonia. And it's cited here that, for instance, California's Lake Mono is alkaline, and it's a very biologically active area. So that's good if it is alkaline. So what they think is that because this ocean is huge underneath this ice, there's more room for these microbes when they get developed to thrive. Now, even though the surface temperature of the moon is minus 200 Celsius, which is only like 70 degrees above absolute zero. However, the tidal friction as it orbits Saturn, they think creates enough heat that it creates the lake underneath and keeps that lake basically in a liquid state. Also, they think that down at the surface, the rocky surface, temperatures may be near the boiling point, close to 90 degrees. And so that would tend to dissolve some of the rocks and produce this milky-looking fluid that they've detected. Then there's Europa. For a long time now, well, a long time, let's say a couple of decades, they've been thinking about Europa because it again is frozen water, and they believe underneath is liquid water. And what they think is under that ice is the liquid water, and down on the surface there may be thermal vents. It's kind of like we didn't know. When I was in high school, the only way you could have life, there had to be sunlight. You had to have sunlight, or there wouldn't be life. Well, guess what? In the 50s and 60s, they went way down in the trenches, miles down, where it was absolutely dark, and they found life thriving near these thermal vents. So these vents here that are depicted, could be a place where life might thrive on this moon. So they think the radiation hitting the surface might create some chemicals that trickle down, and then they combine with whatever's at the thermal vents to produce life. And they are actually planning a mission to send a probe that will bore through the ice and explore the water underneath.